Have you ever stood up from a chair and felt your knees wobble, as if they might give out beneath you? Many older adults tell me they feel their knees growing weaker, more unstable, almost as if the ground becomes less trustworthy with every passing year. They notice the pain when they get out of bed in the morning, or the tight pull when stepping down a stair, and they assume this is simply what aging feels like. But what if I told you that weak knees are not just a matter of getting older? I'm Dr. Evelyn Carter, and in my 60 years of life and decades of caring for older adults, I've learned something surprising. Weak knees rarely begin because of age alone. They often come from quiet habits that build up over time. Maybe you aren't moving as much as you used to. Maybe the muscles around your knees and hips have slowly weakened. Maybe the joints aren't getting the natural lubrication they once received from daily movement. Sometimes even small changes in weight or the natural loss of muscle can place more pressure on your knees than you realize. I still remember a patient who looked at me with frustration and said, "I didn't do anything wrong. I just stood up and my knee felt like it would snap." What he didn't know was that his body had been whispering warnings long before that moment. The good news is that the solution often starts with something incredibly simple. Gentle, consistent movements done for just a few minutes each day can begin reversing years of weakness faster than most people expect. And that is exactly what we will explore today. In the next part of this video, I'll help you understand why the knees weaken, why seniors often feel the pain more intensely, and what is actually happening inside the joint. Most importantly, I'll show you the simple moves that so many of my patients were shocked to discover actually work. You can regain strength, you can improve stability, and you can walk with confidence again, no matter your age. Your journey starts right here. Why do knees weaken as we age? A scientific yet simple and easy to understand perspective. When we talk about weak knees in older adults, people often imagine that age alone is responsible. But aging by itself is rarely the full story. Weak knees develop gradually, quietly, and often in ways you may never have noticed until the pain or instability becomes impossible to ignore. Let me take you into the deeper picture of what truly happens inside the body as we grow older, and why your knees may not feel as strong and steady as they once did. One of the most important changes that occurs with age is the natural loss of muscle. After the age of 50, the body begins to lose muscle mass at a steady pace. This is something many seniors don't realize because it happens silently. Your thighs and hips, which play the biggest role in supporting your knees, become weaker year after year if they aren't intentionally strengthened. When those muscles fade, the knee joint is left to carry most of the workload on its own. That is when the wobbling starts. That is when standing up becomes harder. That is when a step down a stair suddenly feels like a challenge. The knee isn't the problem by itself. It is the lack of support around it. Another major reason knees weaken is because joints are meant to move. They thrive on movement. When you walk or bend or stretch, a thin layer of fluid inside your knees circulates like oil in a hinge. That fluid keeps the joint smooth, nourished, and comfortable. But when you sit for long periods or avoid movement due to fear of pain, that fluid becomes stagnant. The knee becomes dry, stiff, and more sensitive to pressure. Many older adults tell me their knees feel stuck in the morning. That stiffness is the joint reminding you it hasn't been moving enough. Weight also plays a much bigger role than people realize. Even a few extra pounds can make a dramatic difference. For every single pound you carry, your knees feel roughly 4 pounds of pressure when you walk. So if you gain just 5 pounds, your knees absorb the equivalent of 20 additional pounds of force with each step. Most seniors who struggle with weak knees don't understand why their discomfort seems to appear suddenly, but it often comes down to years of small weight changes slowly increasing the stress on their joints. Another overlooked factor is muscle imbalance. Most people have stronger muscles in the front of their thighs than in the back. Over time, that imbalance pulls the knee slightly out of alignment and forces certain structures inside the joint to work harder than they should. The result can be chronic pain or a feeling that the knee wants to shift or buckle. This imbalance becomes even more noticeable in older adults who have spent years sitting at desks, driving, or avoiding exercises that target the back of the legs. And finally, we cannot forget the natural wear of cartilage. Cartilage is the smooth, protective padding inside your knee. It cushions every step you take, but with age, it begins to thin. This thinning doesn't cause pain right away, but when combined with weak muscles, poor joint lubrication, and increased pressure, it becomes a recipe for discomfort. Most seniors believe their cartilage simply wore out because of age, but in reality, lack of movement accelerates the process far more than the number of birthdays you've had. When you put all these pieces together, weak knees stop being a mystery. They become something you can understand, and, more importantly, something you can improve. And that's the message I always want older adults to hear. Your body isn't failing. It has simply adapted to years of subtle habits, and the beautiful thing about habits is that they can be changed. Even at 60, 70, or 80, your knees can grow stronger. Your muscles can rebuild. Your joints can feel lighter and more supported than they do today. Next, we'll explore how these changes affect the different parts of your knee and what happens inside the joint when it begins to weaken. When you understand that, the simple moves I'll share later will make perfect sense and feel even more empowering. Impact on each part of the knee. As your knees begin to weaken, the changes don't happen in just one place. The knee is a beautifully complex structure made of cartilage, ligaments, tendons, muscles, and bone, all working together like gears in a machine. When one part loses strength or balance, the others start to feel the burden. That's why weak knees never feel like a single, simple problem. They feel like a mix of stiffness, soreness, clicking, swelling, or sudden instability. Let me walk you through what happens to each part of your knee when the years go by and the body slows down. The first structure that often struggles is the cartilage. Cartilage is the smooth, cushion-like layer that lines your knee joint. It protects your bones from grinding and absorbs the shock every time your foot meets the ground. But cartilage depends on movement to stay healthy. It doesn't have its own blood supply, so it gets nutrients when you move your legs, and the joint fluid circulates. When you sit too long or avoid walking because of discomfort, that nutrition flow stops. The cartilage begins to thin. It's similar to a door hinge that squeaks, not because it's old, but because it hasn't been oiled. Many seniors tell me they feel a grating or crunching sound when they bend their knees. That sound is often the cartilage signaling that it hasn't been nourished and protected the way it needs to be. Then there are the ligaments. These strong, fibrous bands hold your knee together and keep the joint stable. But as you age and use your body less vigorously, ligaments don't get the challenge or stimulation required to stay firm. They can become slightly looser or less responsive, especially if you've spent years standing up from chairs with poor mechanics or allowing the knees to angle inward. When ligaments weaken even a little, the knee starts to wobble, making you feel less sure with every step. Some seniors describe it perfectly when they say, "My knee feels like it might buckle." In reality, it's the ligaments struggling to support a joint that needs more muscular backing than it's getting. Next are the muscles around the knee, especially the quadriceps in the front of your thigh and the glutes in your hips. These muscles are like the bodyguards of your knees. They absorb the force of day-to-day movement, support your balance, and help your legs stay aligned. But when they weaken, the knee is left to deal with loads it was never meant to handle alone. Seniors who lose strength in their hips often feel pain not only in their knees, but also along the sides of their thighs or lower back. Everything is connected, so when the muscles fade, the stress spreads. I once treated a gentleman in his late 60s who struggled with getting up from his recliner. He wasn't overweight and didn't have arthritis, but his knee pain was getting worse. When I watched him stand up, I saw the entire story unfolding. His hips weren't engaging, his thighs barely activated. His knees did all the work. We started a simple routine, no more than 5 minutes a day, focusing on strengthening his thighs and glutes. After 3 weeks, he came back and told me he could stand up without grabbing the armrests for support. He had also lost about 5 pounds, which naturally lifted some pressure off his knees. He said his pain had dropped by nearly half. That kind of improvement is more common than people think. The knee responds quickly when the muscles around it are given a chance to regain their strength. The lower leg and ankle also play a role. If your ankles are stiff or the muscles in your calves are weak, the knee compensates. Seniors who shuffle their feet or avoid bending their ankles fully end up placing extra strain on the joint, causing fatigue and discomfort. The knee is constantly adapting to what happens above and below it. Even the smallest improvements can make a noticeable difference. A few pounds lost, a few minutes of strengthening each day, or a slight increase in daily walking can revive the structures inside your knee far more than you might expect. When you understand how your knee works and why it weakens, the path to recovery becomes clearer and often much easier than you imagined. In the next section, we'll dive into why older adults tend to experience knee weakness more intensely than younger individuals, and what makes the aging body more vulnerable to these changes. Why do older people have more weak knees? As we continue exploring why knees weaken with age, it's important to understand that older adults don't simply face the same knee challenges as younger people in a slower or milder form. They face a different set of challenges altogether. The aging body changes in ways that pile pressure on the knees from multiple directions. When these factors add up, the knee becomes one of the first places to show the strain. One of the biggest contributors is something most people never see happening: muscle loss. After 60, the body naturally loses muscle at a faster rate. You don't feel it happening day by day, but you notice it when simple movements begin to feel heavier or more draining than before. Without strong thigh and hip muscles, the knee carries the full burden of everyday tasks. Even standing in place for a few minutes or shifting weight from one leg to the other becomes harder because the support system around the knee is thinning. Seniors often say, "I feel weaker, but I didn't do anything." And that's precisely the point. The lack of movement accelerates muscle loss, and muscle loss weakens the knee. Another key factor is balance. The nervous system naturally becomes less responsive with age. The signals that travel from your feet to your brain and back again slow down. That means when you step on an uneven surface or shift your weight unexpectedly, your knees must work harder to stabilize your body. What used to be an automatic adjustment now requires more effort. Many older adults don't realize that their sense of balance has changed until they experience a close call, a stumble, or a moment when they suddenly have to grab onto a table or wall. The knees often get blamed for being weak, but the truth is that balance challenges force them to work overtime. Lifestyle changes also play a surprisingly large role. Many seniors move less, not because they don't want to, but because they fear pain or discomfort. They avoid walking long distances, skip bending motions, and rely on chairs or railings for support. Ironically, these protective habits can make the knees even weaker. The joint stiffens without movement, muscles shrink, and fear slowly replaces confidence. I have talked to countless older adults who say, "I'm afraid to push myself because I don't want to get hurt." But avoiding movement usually sets off the very decline they're trying to prevent. There is another hidden factor at play: inflammation. As the years pass, the body becomes more prone to low-grade, constant inflammation. It might come from stress, poor sleep, excess weight, chronic conditions, or even genetics. And when inflammation rises, the knees are often one of the first areas to feel it. The joint becomes more sensitive, stiffer, and more reactive to pressure. Even small activities, like standing at the kitchen counter or walking around the house, can feel more demanding than they used to. Many seniors describe their knees as tired or heavy, a sensation deeply linked to this kind of inflammation. Weight changes also become more impactful with age. A few extra pounds gained in your 50s or 60s can linger into your 70s, adding years of accumulated stress on the knee joint. Even a relatively small weight change can dramatically affect how the knees feel. Some of my patients have been shocked to learn that losing just 5 to 7 pounds made their knees feel noticeably lighter and more stable. Let me share the experience of a woman in her early 70s who came to see me struggling with constant knee weakness. She moved slowly, carefully, and openly admitted she avoided walking unless absolutely necessary. Her knees weren't just weak, they were overwhelmed by years of underuse. We began with the simplest exercises, so gentle they seemed almost too easy at first. But consistency changed everything. After a month, she told me she could walk from her living room to her kitchen without feeling like her legs were trembling. For the first time in years, she felt sturdy. And that sense of stability wasn't just physical, it gave her emotional confidence she hadn't felt in a long time. Older adults have unique obstacles, but they also have a unique advantage. Their bodies are incredibly responsive when given the right kind of movement. Even small, consistent efforts can wake up muscles, restore balance, and reduce inflammation. When seniors understand why their knees weaken more than younger adults, they can finally stop blaming themselves and start focusing on the steps that truly help. In the next section, we'll explore the warning signs your knees may be giving you, the signals that tell you it's time to take action before weakness turns into something more serious. Warning signs of knee deterioration. As we talk about weak knees, it's important to recognize the signs your body may already be sending. Many older adults ignore these early warnings because they believe discomfort is simply part of aging. But your knees rarely stay silent. They whisper, then they speak, and eventually they shout when something needs your attention. One of the earliest signals is pain when standing up. You might rise from a chair and feel a sharp pull or a dull ache deep in the joint. Some describe it as a heaviness, as if the knee needs a moment to wake up before it can support your body. Another sign is discomfort when stepping down from a stair. Going up may feel manageable, but stepping down creates a sharper pressure that makes you hold the railing tightly. This happens because the knee is absorbing more force than the muscles can assist with. Many seniors notice they begin walking slower without meaning to. Their steps become shorter and their posture shifts slightly forward. This slow, careful movement is often the body's way of avoiding pain or instability. Some people even start dragging their feet because lifting the leg feels more difficult than before. One concerning sign is the sensation that the knee might give out. If your knee ever feels loose, wobbly, or unreliable, that instability is more than a nuisance. It's a message that the support structures are weakening. The knee may also crack or pop more frequently. While occasional sounds are normal, persistent cracking paired with stiffness usually hints that the joint needs more strength and mobility. And then there's swelling. Mild swelling at the end of the day, especially around the kneecap or inner knee, is a common indicator that the joint is working harder than it should. Some people even experience soreness after standing for only a short period. I once worked with a 70-year-old man who had been ignoring these signs for years. He assumed his unsteady steps were normal for his age. One afternoon, he took a small misstep in his yard and ended up falling because his left knee simply couldn't stabilize him. Fortunately, he didn't break anything, but the incident shook him. When we tested his strength, his hip muscles were barely active and his knees had been compensating for far too long. After 6 weeks of gentle, consistent exercises, his walk transformed. He regained confidence in his legs and told me he no longer feared falling. His story is far more common than you might think. Your knees are always communicating. The key is learning to listen before a small signal turns into a major problem. 6 simple exercises to strengthen your knees. Now that we understand why knees weaken and how the signs develop, let me guide you through some of the simplest yet most powerful movements seniors can use to strengthen their knees. These exercises don't require special equipment or long workouts. What they require is gentle consistency. When you move with intention and patience, your knees respond beautifully. The first movement many of my patients start with is rising from a chair. It seems almost too simple, but it is one of the most effective ways to reawaken the thigh and hip muscles. Instead of pushing with your hands or leaning forward too much, you stand slowly, feeling your legs take the weight. At first, it might feel shaky, but within a few days, the muscles begin to remember their purpose. This single motion builds foundational strength. Another helpful exercise is lifting one leg while lying on your back. This quiet movement strengthens the muscles that help the knee stay stable. Many seniors are surprised to discover that their knee feels more supported after just a week of practicing it. That's because this exercise targets muscles that often go unused for years. One of my favorite movements is sliding your back down a wall just a few inches and returning to standing. It's not a deep squat. It's a tiny glide that strengthens both the thighs and the hips without stressing the knees. This is especially helpful for seniors who fear bending too much. Small movements build big confidence. Sitting on a chair and gently extending one leg at a time can also work wonders. It trains the muscles around the knee to lift, support, and stabilize the joint in a controlled way. Over time, this movement can make stepping onto curbs or climbing stairs feel much easier. Rocking gently from your heels to your toes, either while holding onto a counter or standing freely, is another valuable practice. This improves balance and teaches your knee to adjust to shifting weight. Many older adults feel more secure on their feet after adding this to their routine. Finally, marching in place with small, careful steps helps wake up the hip flexors and encourages better circulation through the legs. This movement is particularly useful in the morning when the knees feel stiff or tight. Whenever I teach these exercises, I always remind people that the goal isn't speed or quantity. It's quality. Move slowly, move with control. Pay attention to how your body feels. When done correctly, these simple motions restore strength in ways that surprise even those who have struggled for years. These small daily habits, combined with healthier eating, proper footwear, and maintaining a comfortable weight, create a powerful environment for healing. Your knees don't need perfection. They need gentle, consistent attention. And when they get it, progress follows more quickly than you might imagine. As we come to the end of our time together, I want you to remember something important. Weak knees are not your destiny. They are not a punishment or an unavoidable part of growing older. They are simply a message from your body, a gentle signal asking for attention, movement, and care. And the beautiful truth is that even the smallest changes can create meaningful improvements. A few minutes of simple exercises, a little patience, and a willingness to show up for yourself each day can bring strength back into your legs and stability back into your life. I have seen it happen again and again. Older adults who once felt defeated by their knee pain began to regain confidence through consistent, gentle effort. Your body may have more years behind it than ahead, but it has not forgotten how to heal. It has not lost its ability to grow stronger. With the right habits, it responds in ways that often surprise the very people who doubted themselves the most. So be patient with your body, be kind with your progress, celebrate every small victory, whether it's a smoother step, a steadier rise from a chair, or simply waking up with less stiffness than the day before. These small wins add up. They are proof that your body is listening and working with you. And above all, be grateful for the remarkable journey your knees have carried you through. Every path you've walked, every moment you've stood for someone you love, every mile of your life story has depended on them. They deserve your care, your compassion, and your commitment moving forward. If this video has helped you understand your knees and believe in your ability to strengthen them, I invite you to stay connected with us here at Senior Health Daily. Subscribe, tap the notification bell, and continue this journey with us. Together, we will keep learning, keep growing, and keep living each day with strength, confidence, and joy.